Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Deep Dive podcast with Shamananda and John. Say hi, John.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Super excited about episode two. If you missed episode one, we highly suggest you going back and checking that out. It was all about the four bodies: the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. This episode two is going to be all about the physical body. And so I wanted to start out with asking you, Guru, in terms of the physical body, what is that exactly? Obviously people think, our physical body, but it goes beyond that. So just touch on that real quick before we do dive into the deeper physical body of the purification process that will walk you guys through this journey on this episode too.
Cool. Yeah. So the physical body is, our physical bodies. So it's not just the blood that flows through our veins, which is actually kind of an interesting correlation to an stipulation that I should touch on. It has to do with the blood and the bloodline, and how that affects your words, thoughts, deeds, and actions in this lifetime here. But physical body generally is everything that you can tangibly feel with your body. Your muscles, your viscous fluid, your brain itself, but we're not talking about necessarily your thoughts or your emotions, even though that is attached and is a a process that goes through your neurological system and everything like that. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about the physicality of you. And the spiritual body would be more the extension of such. The different chakra systems in your auric fields and everything beyond that. But the physicality in our world, physical body and the physicality around us are what gets to be purified is what I think you're talking about, John. And that has to do with, cleaning out the body, making sure that you're getting the right nutrients for your body, because not everyone needs the right nutrients necessarily. I mean, generally speaking, as a human, there are definitely things that we eat or vitamins that we take that are good for a lot of us. But, other than making sure that you're reading labels and making sure that you're getting the pure aspect of what you should be consuming, different people have different types of allergies. They have different types of sensitivities, different things that make them sick that don't make other people sick. And so maybe your purification is going to be different from your friend's purification, your mom's purification, because of your unique cellular makeup. So you really get to take a look at that when you're purifying your own. And, making sure that you're getting what your body really needs. Other aspects of purification are making sure that you're not putting chemicals on or in your body at any time. So that does mean reading labels. It does mean staying away from different types of chemical cleaners and maybe, weed killer and stuff like that, where, as an example, weed killer is known to cause cancer. And they actually, if you didn't know, they actually have money allocated for people that sue them because they die of cancer. So they have these huge money stores that are just waiting for when they get sued because it's inevitable, because it causes cancer. So they allocate that, they set that money aside. So we get to be careful about what types of things we put in and on our body just to make sure that we stay clean, because we don't necessarily live in a clean environment, and not everything that is around us is going to keep us safe. And it compiles. So even if that one thing that you eat from the supermarket that has that one chemical in it, maybe if you eat it once, okay, maybe it's not such a big deal. But if you, over time, it might compound and it might cause and if you're doing that with everything, then all of those little things might add up to a big thing for you. So that's something to keep in mind. That's why the best course of action is just to get rid of all of it, and then it doesn't start to you don't have a threshold of how much you're going to carry, and then it's going to cause problems for you later on. So those types of purifications in the physical body, making sure you're drinking the right kind of water. And John, you should really go into the water thing, because there is quite a bit there that people don't even realize with their bottled water, and that's really, really important to know. And let's see. And then part of purification too has to do with making sure your body is healthy physically. So that means moving it, exercising it, uh, you know, keeping your body in top shape overall is really important and valuable. So it there's a lot to that, but those are a few oh, and then keeping your environment clean too. So if you have a lot of clutter around you, it's actually it causes problems for the physical body. I mean, there's you understand what's happening in your unconscious, and and it can actually cause a lot of physical problems for you. So that is something to keep in mind as well. John, tell us a little bit about water and how that can support people.
Totally. I wanted to back up real quick because you said something very vital in that start is each person's different. And I think that goes back to how we were brought up culturally, what are our differences? So we live here in America where there's so many diverse backgrounds of what people ate, what was offered from their parents, maybe they didn't come across as being able to provide for their family. So they just had, whatever they could have, and were making ends meet with, dinners and things of that nature. We do live in fast food nation, so a lot of times, a lot of people were brought up with fast food and the easy carbonated lifestyle, with sodas and things of that nature as well. So I like how you said each person's different because that's totally the world we're living in. And as we come into our adulthood, we're deprogramming on a lot of that bloodline thing process that we were passed down, from our parents, or the environment and access to nutrient dense foods, clean water, gyms, parks, even. And I just think of like the inner cities that don't have this type of access. And now in this nation, there's things are going on, and turf fields for sports, like you mentioned about the physical body that's and working out and having access to basketball courts and just the right environment. So in terms of the water, we're 70% water, you guys. So if you think of our internal world, think of a fish tank. And so a lot of times, how you were saying compounding decisions, that all adds up. And so a lot of times people's insides looks like a dirty fish tank, and that just puts a picture into someone's mind like, whoa. I know for myself, with my background, I had access as playing sports high level in soccer. I had some access to some great coaches, nutritionists that were always providing the foundation, but a lot of times we don't have access to that, and hydration is that foundation. And so as you walk through that process of purification that we're going to, it all stems back to water. We were born in water. If you think of returning to origin, how you came about, you were in your mother's womb in the fluid, and you were surviving and swimming around in that. And so we're used to being in water, around water, and it makes sense why the more majority of people around the world live by water. Water is life. We need it, to survive. And there's definitely different levels. Bottled water is coming out more and more of the microplastics. It's at least 3 to 6 months old, you guys. People wonder why they have hormonal issues. Things are happening to them. The microplastics were averaging 2 credit cards every 2 weeks, eating out of plastic containers and bottled waters and things of that nature. And so if we're not drinking electrically reduced water, which means the water is getting charged into our cells, we're basically doing a disservice to ourselves because we're drinking dead water that's been, in transit on a hot boat, on a hot truck to your grocery store. And so, yeah, I've geeked out on that for about 2 years. That could be a whole separate thing, or if you guys want more information. But I had a question for you, Guru. What would be, you have so many years of experience with your clients. what are some things when like someone first walks in for a first session that you could just tell if they made a few pivots in their physical body, that would be like a game changer for their life?
Oh my gosh. Uh, that's a lot. Because it depends on the person. Because with some people, I I'm looking at all four bodies as soon as they walk in. So
Mm,
one of the things that I notice often is, I think the very first thing I notice is what they're carrying emotionally. And then I notice their I usually notice their physical body last, actually. It's very quick. It's within a couple seconds. But the very first thing is I notice their energetic body first, their spiritual body, and what the spiritual I always see the God in them first, like the highest part of them first, as I do with everyone. So, and then I'll see what that's perfectly creating on the outside. So it'll kind of go there first, and then so the very first thing I notice is, who they truly are, and then what their limiting belief systems create, and then how it's being manufactured on the outside and projected out there. So physical bodies always last, and a lot of the time that perfect outpicturing of their belief system will show up in the physical body in some way. And so maybe they're limping, maybe they're carrying weight that's uncomfortable for them, maybe they're having spinal problems, stomach issues, but all of those are very, very obvious as soon as they walk in without telling me, anything. Maybe it's all mental. If it's all mental, you can tell by the way it shows up in the body, the way they walk in, the way they move. But it's you can see it energetically first. So it's actually quite fascinating. But it's the very first thing I look at people, and then I already know what's going on, and then we have a conversation, and then I ask questions in regards to what I already saw, to pull that out so we can get clarity on that, so that they can be clear on what their issues are, because sometimes they don't really know. I mean, that's why they come in for support. They don't really know what's going on, and they need help. So I'll see what's going on, and then I'll start to ask questions so that their minds can start understanding what's going on, and then we can get clarity on what's been happening. And then we make sure that they're ready to start releasing some of the stuff that they've been holding on to. So it's a bit of a process, because some people are ready to let go of certain things, but they're not always ready to let go of the things that are causing the problem. Did that answer your question?
that's really good, Guru. I love that. And yeah, you definitely answered the question. That gradual process. And I feel like the outer shell tells so much of the story of the internal and the three other bodies. And I liked how you walked us through that. I know for myself, when I first saw you, my my major thing on the physical body, you guys, was fragrance. I was obsessed with cologne. I was obsessed growing up smelling good. It started in my teenage years, going through that process into the teenage years, and growing and developing, and not wanting to smell bad. And I loved like Old Spice and like all these different things. And gradually I was realizing, I'm like, why am I waking up stuffed up? Like I had really bad allergies. That's what Guru's touching on, is some of the littlest things. What are we missing on the peripheral view of our life, you guys? Because that's the value that we're adding here, is those little things that we might be missing can be major in your shift, in your breakthrough. And we are all so close to having that breakthrough. And so when you raise that awareness, I remember my first session, your nose was going out of control because you were so purified that smelling my cologne triggered you to have a reaction. And so now that I've purified my body tremendously since meeting you and just going through those motions, you guys, it doesn't mean we're not asking or telling you guys, hey, you got to make 10 different pivots all at one time. It's a gradual process. We are human. And at the end of the day, there's always a higher choice that we get to make. And so you brought that to the forefront for me. I was like obsessed with cologne, loved like good smelling shampoo. Uh, what was it? The stuff I would
Tide.
want. Yeah, that the Tide in my my clothes was gnarly, you guys, because I just would put so much soap to make my clothes smell good. And if you see it, if you go to the grocery store, go down that aisle. How many times? 99% of the time, people get headaches from being on those aisles, and just they're like, "Whoa, like that's really strong." And those are the fragrances we're talking about. That was my kind of what you were describing. That was like my little welcoming of like, oh wow, like I get to pivot, I get to make a higher choice. And so when I started to peel back those layers, you guys, I started cutting out cologne. I pivoted to, if you guys know about essential oils, those are the best things. Natural. You don't have to overdo it. It warms up to your skin, and it's a great higher choice for yourself. Natural deodorant, there's plenty that have come onto the market. We're just at a time, Guru, where there's so many alternatives that now it's like really our choice, right? 10, 15 years ago, there wasn't as many choices, and people would be like, oh, that's a granola choice, or like, this person's trying to go green. Now it's like so many people are waking up to purifying their body that it's become a norm, and people are looking at that more and more. We have miles to go as a collective, but we're right on track in terms of making those small pivots, seeing what's matching our higher self. And for me, that was the fragrances. So the deodorant, I switched to all natural water for my clothing with a bit of essential oil, and that has tremendously changed. I've gained my natural scent back, and there's so many studies, Guru, in terms of our natural scent. Who do we attract? How do people remember us? And that's how animals are. Obviously, we are part of the animal kingdom in terms of human beings and how we mate and connect with people. But the fragrances overshadow. And so now people walk by me with fragrances, like my nose starts to run. I'm like, whoa, get a little lightheaded because my purification has been strong. And so I just wanted to share that because that was one of my first things that you helped me out, Guru, to catapult me into another layer to get back.
I do
So
have a question because not everyone is going to understand when you said, I wash my clothes in natural water and then I put essential oils. Now, because people are going to think, wow, you must smell horrible because water, essential oils, what's washing the clothes? But you need to explain it because actually, what John's alluding to is that there's a way that you can utilize different water systems where you can create soap, and it becomes soap. It becomes a very, very powerful cleanser that's natural. And he needs to explain it because otherwise you guys are going to think, the guy's crazy. He's just washing his clothes with water and essential oils, and that's not cleaning nothing, right?
you're so right. So yeah, it comes out of my water machine that I help people globally with. There's a 2.5 disinfectant, you guys, and it kills 99.9 of everything. So I always think of, I'm a former athlete, so when I work out at the gym, your smelly gym clothes, it literally kills everything. And then the 11.5 water, which is a high alkaline water, I dump that in as well, and that gets away all of the grease. So think of our skin. Our skin has a lot of oils naturally. And so when the oil goes onto your clothes, you could smell, whether you're at the gym, you might smell bad, or you might have a night on the town where you smell good and you're like, dang, this still smells good. But at the end of the day, it's that mixture with the essential oils that cleanses on a real purified level your clothing. And I've been doing that for over 2 years now, and smell incredible. And the disinfectant really cleans out everything. And like Guru, like you said, like my clothes, it's interesting. Your clothes are an extension of yourself. So rather than my clothes smelling like the toxic cologne that I used to wear, now it actually has my natural scent, which you could expand on that, Guru, too, the natural scent, because I know we've talked about this before. It's just your natural pheromones, and that's how people recognize you. It's the indirect thing when you introduce yourself, and we all have our own scent. And yeah, I do not smell bad. Just to let you're so
But
funny.
the science behind, because you're saying you run, okay, because people aren't going to know. You're saying you run water through a water system, and then you get all these numbers, and then it becomes this thing where you can wash clothes with. But I don't think people are going to understand the science, because if I was a layman listening to you, I'd be, what? What is he talking about? He has it turns into a number, and then it's what? What happens to the water? I want to know scientifically what happens to the water so people can understand, so they understand the benefits of different types of water systems that they can use, so they can use natural products in their home. I'm ready for you.
Totally. So if you think of the pH scale, you guys, there's different pH levels, right? And so that goes for different types of water as well. So when I refer to the 2.5, that is a highly acidic water. And if you look at any of the articles in terms of high, strong acidic water and what it does, is it started in hospitals, and it literally purifies everything, similar to the purification of bleach, but we're trying to get away from bleach, right? Because that's highly toxic. You can't consume it. This is water. You could literally chug a glass, and you're fine. You can't do that with bleach. So think of that, the cleaning properties. I could get way into it. I don't want to get off track, Guru. The 11.5 is the high alkaline water. So if you think of the pH scale again, our bodies are 7.2, and a high alkaline water becomes a degreaser. And so with that process through this machine, the water's electrically charged by 8 titanium plates, and you get two different waters depending on the setting. So out of the top, you get the 11.5, and the acidic waste comes out the bottom, which is the 2.5. So there's so much science, Guru. I don't want to get too much into it. I'll drop some tools on the thumbnail, because that it could take forever. And I typically use videos because people get so lost in the sauce that it actually explains it better than I do. So I
You
just
got
want
it.
to keep us going.
No worries. I'll just put a link or something in this so that if anyone wants to understand more about it, they can, because
Yeah.
there is a lot of sciencey stuff in there, and it gets kind of complicated. But let's just, bottom line though, different water systems can actually provide so much more than just water. It's not just water. It provides cleaning agents. It provides a way to cleanse your face in a really effective way. It hydrates the cells in ways that couldn't possibly be hydrated any other way, because our water, as John was explaining, is dead. So if you have the right kind of water system, because nowadays, in order for us to maintain our physicality in a way that makes sense, we get to consume something that our body wants, because we're not our bodies, we're the spirit, and each of our bodies are going to need something different in order to stay healthy. And so what our mind thinks we might want, like, hey, I think I'm going to grab that soda, and I'm going to grab that chocolate bar and a bag of chips, and I'm going to go head to the beach, and it sounds amazing, but at the same time, our body is saying, hey, can I please get this highly effective water to hydrate my cells so that I can dump all of the cellular waste that's making you sick? And can I, your body's going to want something different from your mind. So just because your mind thinks it sounds yummy doesn't mean your body's going to think so. We gotta fuel that differently. And we got to think of it differently from now on in order for us to be highly effective, if that makes any sense. So anyway, thank you for that. I'll make sure I get that link down in the description below so that you guys can all check it out. I probably won't put it on the thumbnail, but I will put it on the probably in the description. So anyway, I thank you for explaining all that.
Yeah, totally. And I think what I love about the physical body, you guys, and what I've learned from you, Guru, is the more we get into the emotional and the mental and the spiritual, that comes out in the form of the physical body. So I would love for you to explain sometimes with your clients or majority of your clients as they start doing that work in the other three bodies, how does it show up in the physical body?
That's a really good question, and it's important. So there is people's physicality changes when they go through a purification process. So I would say that I don't want to reveal my age, but I would say that when I was in my 20s, I looked older than I do now in a lot of ways. But now I'm turning 50 in a month, and I look younger now than I did 30 years ago because of my purification process. So, which is amazing. It's it's one of those things where as you clean out the mind and you dump all of that stuff and you're not carrying it, then you change. You don't look the same anymore. You don't feel the same anymore. Uh, and how many times do we look at a photo of someone or see Uncle whoever come through and you can tell that they've been going through a lot of emotional strain and they look dead. Like they look like they're dying. They look like they're graying in their face and they just look like their face is kind of melting off and they're carrying something really heavy. You can tell. I mean, all of the other bodies affect the physical body. So if you're going through a lot of emotional strain, it's going to show up. And energetically, it's going to attack different things because of how your unconscious works. Your unconscious will, depending on the type of thought processes that you have and the emotions, and if you're not expelling it and getting it out of your body, it's gonna create havoc on the inside. And so the whole idea is to get it out, so that you're not holding it all for yourself. So if you're going through trauma right now or at any time, one of the most important things that you can be doing right now is making sure that you're expelling that energy from you. And there's a lot of different ways you can do it. So if it's rage that you're going through, at least in part, you could do some rage releases. You could be screaming into a pillow. Get that energy outside of you. Do it in a way that's safe for yourself and other people. And then there's so if it's frustration or rage or exercise, get your body moving, get it out of your body. Start to move your body. And then so if it's a lot of stress at work, it's the same thing. Get the stress out of you by doing something physical so it doesn't stay. Because part of the reason why it's becoming like, oh my God, I'm starting to feel sick, it's because you're trapping it inside and it doesn't have anywhere to go. So give it somewhere to go. Get a punching bag, or if you have access to a gym. If you don't, go outside and go for a run. Go for a walk. If your physicality is limited, do something that's low impact that you can get it out of you. Don't let it strangle you and kill you. Like, just don't do it. I don't know if that supports.
No, that's phenomenal. And you reminded me of what you first, shared with me through learning through you is we are not a garbage bin, you guys. We're not supposed to be holding on to these traumas, these stories, these, bad habits or things that are taking away from our divinity. And so you're right, Guru. How do we release these on the physical realm? How do we tap into how are we feeling? Sometimes traumatic things happen. What tools and what avenues and what outlets can we really reach out to and get that support? And so it goes into the next thing I wanted to ask you about the physical body is our seasons, right? Our body has seasons just like the weather. And, as a male or as a female, we have also different seasons as well, monthly, weekly, things of that dependent on our anatomy. And so I wanted you to touch on the physical body when it comes to seasonality, because there's, loads of clients, even I think of myself, I think of the holidays, right? Coming up on the horizon. That's a very triggering time for so many people. I would say for the whole collective, people that have passed away, getting together with their family could be miserable or also joyful. There's so many different things happening throughout the seasons, just like the weather. So touch on how does the physical have these different types of seasons.
Wow. Well, it's interesting how we go through cycles throughout the year. So, if anything, you know, if we look at how our bodies react in the summer, it doesn't react the same as in the winter, especially being around different types of food and environments and people. And for a lot of people, it's like clockwork. So right after summer ends, they gain 10 pounds and they start to get depressed, and sometimes it has to do with the fact that being around family can be a burden for a lot of people and very triggering, or it's just they have a lot of responsibilities, or they just don't have the time or the money, or there's different different types of vocation, different types of ways of making money slows down during certain times, and sometimes it speeds up depending on your seasons, and that can cause a lot of stress on the physical body and the mental state. If you're especially if you're not doing all that well financially, it's like, well, we're in the season now where I'm not going to make money, and that'll and that plays with your mind, like, oh, I'm not going to be able to buy food, I'm not going to be able to provide for my family. So the seasons, and the moon cycles too really do play a large role on how we feel. So there's always constant movement going on, even in our kind of outer perimeter of the planet Earth, that actually affect us emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually all the time. And all those factors get kind of get into a hodgepodge in a mix, and they play different roles at different times. And because of that, and because it can become kind of complex, it's difficult sometimes to separate the different aspects, to say, well, this is what's doing this to me, and that's what's doing that to me, and not everyone even has the awareness that all of these things are happening to them anyway. They'll just think, oh, just I'm sad, and that's it, and that's okay, but there gets to be some sort of accountability with your feelings and emotions and your physical body and the way it changes. In the summer, maybe you're always really bloated. Maybe you have a lot of extra water that you're hanging on to. And maybe in the winter, you're just, you're not as physically fit because maybe you don't have as much access to exercise. Maybe you're a summer worker and you do labor, but you don't do it in the winter. Or maybe you put on a few pounds. Who knows? It really depends on the person, because it changes from every single person to person. Some people are great all year round because they just have the same routine, but that doesn't work with everybody. But family stress can put a lot of pressure on people. And for the majority, I don't want to even say the majority, but for a lot of people, one of the things that I noticed, and will continue probably to notice for the rest of my life, is that family creates so much stress and aggravation and emotional, you name it, for people, because family is where your triggers began. Ever since you were a little kid, that the triggers in your iconography were formed in co-creation with you and your family. So those are the people that, as soon as you see them for the holidays, whatever holiday you celebrate, and if you're celebrating it with them and you show up, the very first thing they do is go, I'm gonna push on this, and then they push on your triggers, right? And then you have your experience. And you're like, wow, I haven't felt that for a really long time. Well, since last year when Uncle so and so said this to me. They helped create that darn trigger when you were a kid. Of course, it's going to be there, and they know exactly what to press, and they're not going to necessarily change. I mean, all these triggers are going to be the same, right? Something to keep in mind. But what's really interesting is that if you don't spend a lot of time at home anymore, and you move away, and you only see them maybe once every couple years, and you're in the growth process, if you're growing, if you're doing the work, you start to notice things in a different way, like, I didn't even realize they talked to me like that. Has this always been this way? And chances are it was, and then you start making some different kind of connections, because you're separated enough from them and you've grown enough where there's enough distance between you and the trigger where you're thinking, yeah, that's not who I am anymore. That's really
Mm.
interesting that they're saying that, but I can still feel the remnants of what it would have done to me. And they're not getting the same reaction from me either, so they might find that a little odd. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I think you hit on a good thing in terms of the residency, right? In those trigger and awareness moments as you're growing, you guys, your residency is going to change. So I always think of a mountain, right? Your consciousness is rising, and there's different residencies. So as you grow your physical body or any of the bodies, and you're doing the work, your residency is going to grow. So you might be think of like a little thing on the side of the mountain, you know, a little house that you're living in, and you're doing all these things. How do you break away from that? You break away from being disciplined by showing up and doing these new habits. It's super hard to do the work, right? But showing up and doing that. And so I loved how you said that, because it reminded me, if you're doing the work, your residency changes, your altitude changes, and your awareness and viewpoint and the association with that person changes. So you're spot on, Guru. I love that when you have that clarity and you're like, oh, that's not me anymore, and you set a new president uh, of who you are, and who you are in those moments, especially in the holiday season. So. What would be a time for you, talking about the physical purification in your own journey, that catapulted you into a journey of purification, right? You kind of shared on in your 20s and things of that nature. Was there a pivotal moment in your life where you're like, hey, I'm fed up, I'm done with this, I get to make this pivot for the long term?
I've had definitely multiple cases of that. One of them was in my 20, well, I'm sorry. I think it was in my 30s when I stopped drinking alcohol.
Mm.
Completely stopped. I haven't had a drop of alcohol since. And then that was really pivotal. That changed a lot of things. In my earlier years, I smoked too, and I stopped doing that. That was really pivotal. One of the big ones I would say would be when I realized I had food allergies. Now, I don't eat much at all. I eat very little in my life. I don't really need much food anymore. And now I mostly eat just for pleasure. But anyway, the point, without even really getting into that, because that one's a real deep dive. That's a whole nother thing that I just when I discovered I had food allergies, though, because it seemed like the things that I enjoyed to eat, I was allergic to every single one of them. And it was creating an autoimmune response in my body to the point where I got so sick after I would eat them that I would just be a puddle afterwards. And it happened for a long time. I remember having different relationships where we would eat and then I would lay down and I would feel so sick every time I would eat anything. And they would be, well, what's going on? And all I'd want to do is sleep, because of the autoimmune reaction. So I'd get the nausea, the muscle aches, and I never told anyone. I never really talked about it. I just kind of suffered in silence. And because I didn't know what was wrong with me. I just like, why can't I just eat a meal and feel okay? But it turns out that one of my food allergies was wheat. So a severe wheat allergy, uh, moderate gluten allergy, to the point where the autoimmune response that I had was really bad. And and it wouldn't just affect me after I ate it. There was a resonance that would stay in your body, because when you continue to be pushed down by something like that over and over and over again, your body doesn't have a chance to recover, and more damage happens over time. So one of the things that happened when I took out, and seed oils too, big time, just really made me sick. And so once I took those out and didn't allow them in any of my snacking, I actually began to not need to sleep. during the day anymore. Like, so I was awake all day long, which was really strange. And then my feet had serious neuropathy, a lot of pain, and a lot of that started to heal. And that takes a lot of time to heal, a long, long time, because once you start getting nerve damage from different things that you're consuming, so it was part of the sugars that I like to eat, but it was also a lot of it had to do with the nerve damage from just my allergies too, my food allergies. That started going away. The brain fog that I was having started to go away. I couldn't focus very well at all. I couldn't even read a book. I couldn't. I had a hard time meditating and closing my eyes because there was just the autoimmune reaction was causing a problem for me. Like, I couldn't even focus. It was terrible. So that was one of the big ones. So if you're having some of these problems, then one of the best things you can do is go get tested. Go get your blood tested, like I did. Go to even a holistic doctor. My holistic doctor knows the gamut of all the meds and all the holistic. She's both. Like, she really does both. So you understand that you have options on both sides, and you can just pick and choose what's best for you. And I personally wanted to understand the entire structure of what's available to me, and not just holistic, and not just the medical community side, the more of the you know the you know the mainstream medical community. I wanted to know it all so that I could make a honest to goodness judgment as to what was going to be best for my body, with different things that would pop up. And it's been a game changer completely for me. So if you have issues like that, go check it out, and check it out anyway, because you never know what kind of allergies you might be having. Anything that might be popping up that might be causing a problem for you. And it does create damage over time, and it can really hurt you in the long run. So
What came to mind when I was listening to you, Guru, is the journey, right? And that's the main thing, you guys, is it's not it is major pivots, but it doesn't happen overnight. And I think you said it beautifully, is like it's definitely a process, and it's take years of compounding those choices. Main one was the alcohol. I think sometimes people don't look at that. Oh, I have a drink here, or I have three, minimum three drinks per week, or I know I was that person. I'll be sober for 4 years this coming January. You've helped me solidify a lot of my sobriety on that, and just the mindset behind that, you guys. It releases so much, and dependence on, a poison that really just screws your body up long term and short term. So thank you, Guru, for sharing that. The one that's I always find interesting too is the gluten one. And it's become more prevalent in our society, especially when people go and travel to, say, like Europe and like France, where they don't use a lot of gluten, or anything of their products is very, handmade, homemade style, where ours is big batch, and the wheat is not really the same, and is the missing link. And that's why a lot of times people, when they vacation, and also in like Italy, and they're like, why could I have the pasta, and why, all these sweets, and they're fine, is what's in our food. The toxicity, you guys, in our food in this country is insane. And there's more awareness out there. We could find it anywhere. And sharing our stories with you guys, we hope it motivates you to make a pivot on your physical body today. I know for myself, mine has been sugar. So when you stop drinking, there's a lot of sugar and alcohol. And so I've had a sugar tooth, or a sweet tooth, for majority of my life. And then when I started drinking alcohol of age, that really turned into like, okay, drinking alcohol, and then drinking or eating a lot of sweets, a lot of different things, and your brain chemistry does change. It is addicting in terms of just like a drug. Sugar's, one of the worst in terms of for people on their physical body. So the best way is do a detox, do elimination diet. I loved how you said do the blood work. I'm right there with you on that. And find clarity in it. Find what's triggering you, what's your triggers on the physical body, because that gives you power to make a higher choice. And then if you think about it, returning back to origin on how we used to eat, the ancestral, that's been coming to the forefront of the basic needs of our body. We don't need any of these complex ingredients that we look at the grocery store. I'm always amused and amazed at the same time when I turn over a box of whatever and the amount of ingredients I cannot pronounce. That's when you know something is very toxic in our food. So I love that, how you shared that, Guru. And the food sensitivity is major. The stomach to our gut and brain connection, and how we get to feel good to be able to serve good. And it shows with you radiating every day from the inside out. And so, what are some things? I know we shared a lot of different tools people can use to start the process of purification. What would you say, like, one step would be to start a purification process today for some of our viewers?
Okay, so maybe it would be the easiest thing to get a pad of paper and a pen and separate the four bodies on a piece of paper. So write down the physical, the mental, the emotional, and then the physical. And then write down one thing in each of those bodies that you're having a problem with, right? So let's say in the physical, you feel like you get to exercise more. That's pretty common, right? Everyone feels that for the most part, except for the people that go all the time. So if it's a physical, like, or what is it would be more like a problem though. So it would be I feel like I'm not strong enough to do this. So you can actually find that problem in all the other bodies too. So take one problem. I don't feel like I'm strong enough to walk to work. I don't know. So in the physical body, where would that show up? Well, physically, maybe you're not you're not exercising enough. Mentally, what's in the gap there? So if we're looking at the mental body and the purification that gets to happen in the mental body with that, what's in the gap there? So why are you not allowing yourself to do it? So is there a mental process that's in the way? What kind of obstruction is stopping you from doing it? And a lot of people might say, well, I just don't have time. But time conversations are intimacy conversations. So it's a lack of intimacy with yourself. It's a lack of wanting to provide that kind of love for yourself. So no matter what, time conversations are intimacy conversations a lot of the time. So emotionally, there might be something in the way of you not being strong, like not being able to do that for yourself. So maybe you don't feel capable. Maybe you've been told you're not capable to be that strong your whole life. Maybe emotionally you feel like there's just you're just not worthy to be physically fit. Maybe you don't want to give that to yourself because you don't like yourself very much. So whatever's in the emotional body. And in the spiritual body, a lot of the time it usually boils down to a lack of connection with that higher part of yourself. Because if you're connected to that higher part, if you're connected to that higher part of yourself, there isn't really an issue there. I mean, you would understand what the message is. You would understand that you would get to do certain things to make sure you stay healthy. And you would want to do them because you're connected to that higher part of yourself. So the problem and the purification that would get to happen in the spiritual body is a greater connection. Discovering who you are is love. Getting down to the aspect of who you truly are, and embracing that and having conversations with that and spending time with that. So the purification for not being physically fit enough to walk to work, hopefully it's not that far, like not like 10 miles away or something like that, but would be, you get to find a way physically to be able to start building up your muscle strength and endurance so that you can. And I'm not talking about if you're 98 years old and you really have a hard time. And if you're still working at that age, please stop and just enjoy the rest of your life. But yeah, just finding a way to build the muscle. And then the mental, the purification would be, kind of what kind of thought process is standing in my way of actually doing this on a regular basis. Emotionally, what's in the gap, and why are you stopping yourself emotionally from loving yourself to the point where you're doing something like that for yourself, to better yourself, to better your physical body. And a lot of the time it has to do with a payout for your behavior. So maybe a payout for you not doing it is stronger. Like, no, I'm proving that I'm not worthy. So if I don't exercise, or maybe you don't want to work, and maybe you can only walk there, and it's an excuse because you don't want to provide that for yourself. Who knows? But be honest about it and do the work. And then spiritually, you get to connect to your higher self and fall in love with yourself, because it sounds like you're lacking in self-love if that's the problem. So that's, I don't know, just a random example of how you could break things down. And you can use that exercise for any problem you have.
So good, Guru. And we always love to end on exercises. So that's a incredible one to send out for our viewers. And I haven't done that one in a while, actually. So I'm going to actually do that today and this week. So it's always good, you guys, to do this exercise, take inventory, and then do it, 2 weeks from now, a month from now, and see where you're at. I'm a firm believer too, is you get to choose this, right? And choose it for you. I loved how you said the people that are making excuses about time, it's an intimate thing, so how much do you love yourself? How much do you care about yourself? Making this higher choice for yourself. And I always think what you always say is just start, John, just make the decision to start. Everything else falls into place. And that's, I think, the biggest roadblock for a lot of people is just starting. Oh, they're talking about, I want to do the blood work, the elimination. And it's like they get so paralyzed because they want to do it all. It's like what we shared on this episode, you guys, is it takes steps, right? Dedicate. Sometimes I even do it, is dedicate a year to one thing, right? I know back in 2020, I dedicated that to the nervous system. And then I gained momentum. I dedicated another year to that. Last year was for sleep. So sleep a lot of times is the missing link for a lot of people in the physical body, not getting enough. We live in a sleep depleted society as well. So think about that, you guys, because that was eye opening. I know so many sessions with Guru, I was like, my sleep schedule's off, this and that. It's like, you got to make the effort though, if you want to make traction, and you got to track it to be able to make those improvements as well. So I love that journal example, Guru. So this is the end of episode 2. We don't do any advertisements, promotions. This is for you guys. This is for the whole collective. Guru and I serving you guys, adding value to your day. We thank you so much for tuning into episode 2. All that we ask is, if you really love this episode and it really moved you and made you think of things you could do for yourself, but things that you could do for people in your life. That's what we're here. We're here to make impact. Go ahead and share this live with someone that you truly care about, or even a stranger, right? Someone that you recently connected with. We're all in this together to rise up, to have a deep dive in the collective consciousness. That's why we're here. I'll hand it over to Guru on where you can find her. She's doing some incredible things at the moment. And also, if you're locally in Orange County, she'll give you some things on the horizon for her practice and community as well.
Yeah. You guys are always welcome to reach out. So just go ahead and leave a comment below so that and let me know if you want to chat. There's also there's email, there's all kinds of things you guys can do. So and I'm all over the internet, so find me, so and it's true, I'm doing crazy fancy special things right now. One of them is the mastermind that I'm creating, which is a very, very advanced, comprehensive, step-by-step toolbox that is truly essential for, if you're really loving expanded consciousness and a higher consciousness, if you're looking for, the steps and a path to enlightenment, if you're wanting to fortify who you are as a any type of business owner who's trying to scale to a higher level, and to be able to incorporate the vision and have the mental capacity to do it in a way that you've never done it before, then this is exactly who I'm creating this for. It's quite an incredible thing. I'm still very shocked at how well it turned out. It blows my mind. It exceeded my expectations, and I'm sure it will yours too. There's a lot of really beautiful, dense information, and it's there's enough information in there for years, just for people to go through and really study. And so I'm thrilled to present it, and reach out to me, and I'll let you know how to get it. And I might put a link in eventually when it's almost ready. I would say just another couple more weeks and we'll be right there. So, but I got to tweak everything. I'm a bit of a perfectionist in that way. Anyway, I love you all. It's always an honor to be here with you guys. And yeah, just if you guys have comments or questions, make sure that you reach out and let us know so we can support you, because that's why we're here. We love you a whole bunch, and we're so grateful that you listened today. So thanks for coming by, and we'll see you next week. Say bye, John.
See you guys.